What would you do if every single morning a doll appeared on your porch, and with each passing day, it looked more and more like you?
What is this?
Would you call the police? Would you throw it away? Or would you dare to keep it, even as its glassy eyes seemed to follow your every move? In one small American town, that very nightmare unfolded when a young woman discovered not one, not two, but 7 dolls, each one capturing her face, her scars, even the clothes she wore the night before. Neighbors whispered about curses. Investigators found shadows on camera at exactly 3 a.m. And to this day, no one can explain how the final doll was carved to perfection, the very night she disappeared. Stay with me until the end, because every chilling detail will make you question whether you're truly safe in your own home. If you love and care about real horror stories, give me a like, a subscribe, and share this video so I'll have the motivation to bring you the next terrifying tale. That first night seemed like any other. Emily Johnson, a 26-year-old living alone in the quiet suburbs of Ohio, locked her doors, turned off the lights, and went to bed with nothing unusual on her mind.
Oh,
But when she stepped outside the next morning, there it was, a small porcelain doll left neatly on her porch. At first glance, it looked like an old toy someone had dropped. But then Emily froze. The doll had brown hair, styled just like hers, and it wore a faded blue dress, almost identical to the one she had worn the day before. She laughed it off, thinking maybe a neighbor's kid was playing a prank. Yet something didn't sit right. Emily checked her doorbell camera, and at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, the lens caught a blurry figure stepping out of the shadows. The figure placed the doll carefully by the door, then vanished in less than 5 seconds. No car, no footsteps, no sign of anyone leaving. Even more disturbing, the police later examined the porch and found no fingerprints on the doll, no
What do you
shoe
make of
prints
this
in the
doll?
dirt,
I've never seen
nothing
anything
but a
quite
faint
like it.
smudge on the wooden railing, almost like the trace of a gloved hand. I can't help but think how terrifying it must feel to realize someone has been so close to your home while you were asleep inside. And the fact that the doll resembled her, even in small details, makes me wonder, was this random or was it intentional? Personally, I believe these first signs are never accidents. They are warnings. Emily decided to keep the doll, thinking it would help the police investigation. But as we'll soon see, that decision only opened the door to something far darker. Because the next nights wouldn't just bring another doll, they would bring something far more unsettling. Over the next 3 nights, the so-called coincidence turned into something far more disturbing. On the second morning, Emily opened her door to find another doll. This one had a tiny scratch etched into its porcelain wrist, the exact same place where Emily carried a small scar from a childhood accident. By the third morning, the doll's clothing was an eerie replica of Emily's favorite hoodie, a pale gray one she had worn just hours before. And by the fourth morning, the doll's face was no longer generic. It carried the faint outline of Emily's own cheekbones and even her slightly crooked smile. The doorbell camera told the same story each time. At exactly 3 a.m., the same shadowy figure would appear at the edge of the frame. The recordings were so grainy, it was impossible to see details. Yet one officer swore he could make out long hair blowing in the wind, while another claimed it looked more like a hood pulled tightly over a head. Forensics examined the footage in Emily's porch, but once again, there were no fingerprints, no shoe prints, No tire tracks.
I am looking.
The only trace was a strand of hair caught on a splinter of wood. Brown, human, but too degraded for DNA analysis.
Please, Mrs. Harris,
When
you
Emily
have to believe
confided
me.
in her neighbor,
This
Mrs.
is bigger than
Harris,
any of us.
the older woman admitted she had once seen someone standing across the street at night, just staring at Emily's house. But when she called out, the figure vanished into the trees. To me, that detail is what sends chills down my spine. It suggests that whoever was leaving those dolls wasn't just targeting Emily randomly. They were studying her, watching her life closely enough to recreate her image in porcelain. And this is where I have to pause. Because if it were me, I think I'd be terrified not only of the dolls, but of the idea that someone knew so much about me, down to the scars on my wrist and the clothes I wore when no one else was around. That's not coincidence.
Just
That's obsession.
Emily.
Emily tried to convince herself it
Don't
would
know
stop,
what to say.
that maybe it was a cruel prank reaching its end. But she was wrong. Those first 3 dolls were only the beginning of something much darker. By the 7th day, Emily's quiet home no longer felt like her own. It wasn't just that the dolls kept appearing. It was where she found them that terrified her most. One night, she deliberately left the latest doll outside, determined to see if the stranger would come back to retrieve it. But the next morning, that same doll was no longer on the porch. Instead, it was lying neatly on her bed below, as if it had been watching her sleep. The door was still locked, the window still latched. The security cameras showed no one entering the house, yet the doll had moved inside. Investigators later dusted the doll for prints. Nothing. They checked the locks, no sign of forced entry. The only clue was a faint footprint on the hardwood floor near her bedroom. So small and delicate, it looked almost like a child's bare foot. What disturbed Emily even more was the detail in each new doll. One wore a tiny replica of her work ID badge. Another bore a painted freckle beneath its left eye. Something only those close to her would ever notice. And then came the most horrifying one. A doll with a shallow red line painted across its wrist. A perfect mirror of the scar Emily had cut open accidentally, just days before, while cooking. Whoever was making these dolls wasn't just copying her past. They were following her life in real time. Friends who visited swore they felt uneasy inside the house. One of them, Jessica, claimed she saw a shadow move across the hallway when no one else was there. Another refused to stay the night after hearing faint tapping on the bedroom window at 3 a.m.
Please, you have to
To
help
me,
She's in here.
this
I
is the
can
part
hear
that
her.
feels almost supernatural.
Please.
How could anyone be so
They
close,
just stare at me.
so
I hear them
precise,
talking.
without ever being seen or caught? If I were Emily,
Always watching.
I think the hardest part wouldn't just be the fear. It would be the loss of safety in my own space. Your home is supposed to protect you, to
I
keep
think
the
my
world
husband
out.
is still alive.
But for Emily,
Tell me everything you
it had
know.
become the very stage where her nightmare played out. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse, her decision to involve the authorities and a private investigator would pull her deeper into a mystery far more chilling than she could ever imagine. Emily finally reached her breaking point. She called the police and handed over all her camera footage, hoping professionals would see what she had missed. Officers reviewed hours of grainy recordings, the same blurred figure appearing at precisely 3 a.m., leaving the dolls in silence.
It cannot be.
But here's what unsettled them most. On one of the tapes, the figure seemed to pause, tilt its head toward the camera, and smile. Even through the static, that grin looked disturbingly human. The police dusted the porch, the doorknobs, even the dolls themselves. No prints, no fibers, no evidence of forced entry. The only clue was a faint trace of organic material found on one doll's dress. Skin cells too degraded for a full DNA match. The report came back inconclusive, which to me is even scarier than a clear answer, because it means someone was close enough to shed skin onto the doll and still managed to vanish without a trace. Frustrated, Emily hired a private investigator named Daniel Cross. Unlike the police, Daniel wasn't restricted by procedure. He spent nights parked outside her house, binoculars in hand, waiting for whoever was haunting her. After a week of sleepless surveillance, Daniel found something the police had overlooked. Deep in the woods behind Emily's property stood a rundown hunting cabin. Inside, he discovered shelves lined with unfinished porcelain heads, scattered wigs, and scraps of clothing. And every half-finished doll carried some feature of Emily. Her eyes, her jawline, even the pattern of freckles across her shoulders. Daniel's notes described the cabin as a workshop of obsession. The walls were covered in Polaroid photos of Emily's daily life, walking her dog, shopping for groceries, even standing at her bedroom window. The level of detail made it clear. Whoever was behind this wasn't just fixated. They were documenting her existence piece by piece. If I'm being honest, this is the part that chills me to the bone. The dolls weren't random gifts, and they weren't just toys. They were replicas, crafted step by step, almost like a replacement Emily was being built in secret. And to think someone had been watching her closely enough to get every detail right. That kind of obsession doesn't just stop.
Oh my God.
It escalates.
What is it?
And sadly, that escalation was about to reach its terrifying peak. Because on one final night, Emily would come face to face with the darkest truth of all. The night Emily vanished was quiet, eerily quiet. According to the timeline pieced together later, she had been home alone, scrolling on her phone until just past midnight. Then, at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, the same cursed hour when the dolls always arrived, the doorbell camera flickered on. The footage showed Emily stepping cautiously to the door, drawn by a soft knocking sound. She hesitated, her hand on the lock, as if she knew she shouldn't open it. But then she did. What the camera captured next was haunting. A blurred figure, taller than Emily, leaned forward into the frame. The screen glitched, static filling the image for several seconds. And when the picture cleared, Emily was gone. The porch was empty. No struggle, no scream, just silence. The next morning, neighbors found a single doll sitting neatly on the top step. This time, it was not half-finished or approximate. It was a flawless replica of Emily herself. Same hair length, same freckles, even the chipped nail polish she had been wearing that
Sending
week.
it to the lab now.
Forensics tested the doll.
Did you
And
find
here's the
anything else?
part that still gives me chills.
What do you think is going on?
I don't
Trace
know,
amounts
but
of human blood were
something is
found on
not
the
right.
porcelain lips. Too small a sample to confirm, but the investigators feared it was Emily's. Witness statements only deepened the mystery. One neighbor swore she saw someone carrying a large bag into the woods around 3:30 a.m. But when police searched the area, they found nothing. Another neighbor, Mrs. Harris, claimed she heard faint humming outside her window that night, a lullaby she remembered from her childhood. Yet no one else reported hearing a thing. Personally, this is the moment that breaks me. To imagine her standing there, staring into the shadows, and then simply vanishing. It feels almost supernatural. But whether human or something darker, the obsession had finally claimed her. And from that night on, the story of Emily Johnson wasn't just about creepy dolls on a porch. It became a chilling urban legend, one that made people across town whisper about what might happen if a doll ever showed up on their doorstep. After Emily's disappearance, the story spread like wildfire. In just a matter of weeks, the town was drowning in whispers, what people now called the 100 rumors. Some swore they saw dolls left on their own porches, though most claimed to have burned them before morning. Others said that if you looked closely at the doll's glassy eyes under a flashlight, you could see something moving inside. Tiny reflections that weren't your own. The police reports became just as chilling. One neighbor submitted her doorbell footage, showing a doll suddenly turning its head toward the camera at 3 a.m. A motion that investigators chalked up to wind,
Oh my goodness.
though many refused to believe it. Another household handed in a porcelain handprint found smeared on their window, far too small for an adult, but eerily human. And in a few extreme cases, people claimed their pets barked or clawed furiously at
Did
the
you hear
dolls, as if sensing something alive beneath the porcelain shell. To me, these details blur the line between urban legend and horrifying truth. Whether every rumor is real or not almost doesn't matter. What matters is the effect. People became afraid of their own front steps. Families stopped answering knocks after midnight. Children were told never to pick up abandoned toys. The dolls had turned into a symbol, an omen that if one ever appeared at your door, your life might be the next to unravel. And honestly, I think that's the most frightening part. Not the mystery of who made the dolls, not even the disappearance of Emily, but the uncertainty. The idea that it could happen to anyone. That one morning, you might open your door, see a doll that looks like you, and realize someone or something has already been watching. So let me leave you with this. If tomorrow a porcelain face appeared on your porch, staring back at you with your own features, what would you do? Would you burn it? Would you keep it? Or would you pretend it was never there? Because sometimes ignoring a warning is the quickest way to invite the nightmare inside. And if you love and care about real horror stories like this one, give me a like, a subscribe, and share this video. That way, I'll have the motivation to bring you the next terrifying tale. One that might be even closer to home than you think.